This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good evening, everyone. I call to order the meeting of the joint workshop between Town Commission and Planning and Zoning, October 19th. Executive order number 29 issued by the office of Governor Ron DeSantis, ended by order 20. Municipalities may conduct meetings, governing bodies with doesn't physically threat any sizing technology such as telephonic or video conference as provided by section 120.54 for public comment will member of remotely zoning alternate there. Clerk Armstrong, will you please provide the information?
The agenda, the materials for each item on the agenda, and the notice regarding the virtual meeting were made available beginning October 14th, 2020 on the town's website, and is also available in the town clerk's office during its business hours. The public was given the opportunity to submit public comments to the town clerk prior to the meeting. The town has developed several new methods ensuring public comment for a virtual meeting. Any person may be heard by the town commission through the teleconference and upon registering with the town clerk pursuant to the published notice to speak for not more than 3 minutes on items on the agenda. This is a virtual meeting as authorized by the Governor of the State of Florida. Members of the public wishing to address the body may do so by the town clerk will unmute the public once the mayor calls for public comment. Persons interested in speaking may speak up to voice your public comment. Do not unmute your physical phone until you are ready to make a comment. Remute your phone once you have completed your comment. Persons who cannot access the meeting by teleconferencing using a computer with speaking capabilities or through a smart application can call Town Hall at 561-732-2635 and notify a Town Hall staff of their public comment. The Town Hall staff will notify the Town Clerk, who shall read the public comment into record. These public comments options established for virtual meetings comply with Section 286.0114 and Section 120.54 Florida statute. The public that is physically present for the Town Commission meeting may participate in public comment by coming up to the podium. The Town of Ocean Ridge has a facial covering requirement and also encourages the public to practice social distance. All chairs within Town Hall have been measured to comply with the 6 feet social distance requirement. No such hand stations have been placed next to the podium as well as next to the entrance doors of Town Hall. Tips for virtual meetings. Try to use one device. Do not attend the meeting by using both your computer and telephone at the same time. Mute your phone. If you're attending by telephone or computer, those that do not mute their phone can cause disruptions into the meeting. Do not unmute yourself. The information in the chat box is a public record. Call Town Hall if experiencing technical difficulties.
All right.
I will start by calling Town Commissioners. Commissioner Bessler.
Here.
Vice Mayor Cobb.
Here.
Mayor DeHassett.
Present.
Commissioner Herbert. Commissioner Vigilante.
Here.
I will now call Planning and Zoning Commissioners. Chair Mark Marsh.
Here.
Vice Chair Rick Carey.
Here.
Member Neil Hennigan.
Here.
Member David Hudson.
Here.
Member Penny Kaczynski. Here. Alternate Member James Fleming.
Here.
And alternate Member Britt Flanagan.
Here.
So all please rise and join me to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It doesn't feel the same stuff. Commissioner Bessler.
Well, I was whispering it before I
Absolutely.
screw you guys up.
Are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on the approval of the agenda. Second?
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Holbrook, a second by Commissioner Black. All in favor signify, please, by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. On to the introduction. Our town manager is going to remind us of our mission, our town characteristics, goals of this workshop. Thank you.
I want to thank the Town Commission and the Planning and Zoning Commission members for coming together for this important workshop to discuss future policies for the town. I also want to introduce our staff that is present. Our new town attorney, Ryan, and we have our building official, Durrani Guy, have our town planner, Corey O'Gorman, have our town engineer, Lisa Giuseppe. Corner, we have our assistant town clerk, Kathy Gatewood. Staff, we have police, Al Hutchins. On the side here, we have our building clerk, Lisa Burns, have our town clerk. I want to begin by reminding everyone that the mission of the town of Ocean Ridge is to create and maintain beautifully landscaped, diverse seaside communities around the family and civic pride, state-of-the-art public services, infrastructure that enhance the natural beauty of our town. As you know, Ocean Ridge is a beach-oriented town characterized primarily by single-family homes with lush, well-maintained landscaping, extensive outdoor recreational opportunities. There are also intercoastal and beachfront condominiums and a few multifamily buildings scattered throughout the town. There are very little commercial improvements left in town. In an effort to make a tranquil setting, commercial and industrial uses have been prohibited. Vacant lots that remain throughout the town are designated for single-family housing. Since the great majority of land is built out, the primary concern for the town now is development. The goal, according to the future land use element of the comprehensive plan, protect and enhance the residential character and natural environment of Ocean Ridge. To that end, the goal of this meeting is an understanding of current town regulations, determine if the current regulations work based on the town's mission statement, current conditions and environment, or determine if policy changes are needed, and to give staff direction based on those determinations that you make today in order to approve town regulations. I'll just go over the meeting procedures really quickly. A time limit for this workshop has been established at 2.5 hours. The mayor is the presiding officer for this meeting and is responsible for preserving order. When commissioners or P&Z members or staff wish to speak on a topic, he or she shall display their placard and wait to be called upon by the mayor. So now, if you would put your placards in this position, if you wish to speak, you're going to turn them upward. That way the mayor will know that you're ready to speak on the topic and he'll call upon you. There is a section for public comment at the beginning of this meeting. This is a working meeting of the Town Commission and Planning and Zoning Commission. There will be no public comment taken during the workshop portion. So once the public comment section is closed, it's closed for the evening. Any members of the public wish to speak? So during public comment. I'll turn this over to. I just had
Well, if we have experts out there in the public that, during the course of our meeting, it would be allowable for the person in the public to go to the podium.
Can we take a break?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to add to what Tracy, we all drive around, we all have health. Here's just some factoids that a little bit modified by this point, but I think it's a good reminder, especially ordinances. We have approximately 14,500 parcels. Not people, but parcels. Of that, 456 residential. That 24 of them are residential. Ours, one that I found was really interesting though is our RMM, which there are 1,005. There is almost twice as many multi-family or parcels. So it's just an interesting. Other key factoids: 32% are 2 bedrooms, 36% bedrooms. Overall, 89%. I think that just that's the part. We obviously have ocean view, which is our average is 10,000. Our state start at 15. A lot of what we're going to be discussing today, it turns out we already have code. We all thought we were coming up with something brand new. It actually is not. So, look at what we already have and try to find some kind of more back to that. It changes. Goes over the city. With that, more comments? This is a meeting. Often. Out of staff. I encourage everybody to try brevity. We already said that was wonderful. The only thing that I'd like to add is maybe at 6:15. Quietly. I just. Margo, please.
Margo. Five. Public. Guys have gotten better. Been developing customers. I've always done a pretty good job. I don't think of home. Got a great town here. Live here. I'm a resident. But part of the market from all the new buildings is so block. I'm talking that's me. I know each all these people want to develop new homes on their land. Talking to the architects, they're realizing probably 46 months of their time by per other. Let's say I have estimated architect that can slowly later. Let's get cost about $10,000. All the paperwork that architects houses. It's about the money, but it's time we all. About 4 or 5 months to, but then after it's all done with, have to go permitted then another couple months. And Tom's doing a great job with it. Building official, guys are great. But you know, they all try to help out as much as, but you know, going with a lot of different. First, I think you guys know flood elevation 7 to Drive, we were about to put that into, had to just start reworking all their plans all over again because of this. Gotta be on this. I started out with the, kind of give the conceptual idea of the house. Kind of going through it that way, it was very simple. You had your opinion. You guys need to push it, do what you want. That worked out really good. Basically, that's what we were home started. That's the starting out, we're going through zoning process. Deputy has to go look at through building, we're going through all the processes, so go through that whole process. Something's not perfect. Try to get 5 days, finally have to start again. A lot of time and expense are losing $50,000 or but time. $1 million lots more. But want to put themselves in their home.
Thank you. We're gonna.
Right.
Sure,
That's a couple
absolutely.
little things. I tend to, anyway, we could try to streamline this, put them in all hands. Everything, all our permits, all of our everything, have it all going in one shot along with our, the whole plan we're, now you're kind of double, go through all these areas, then we start again, back through, try to just, one big happy process, don't have to do work. But a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort for losing. So when I did, probably just about 4 months, everything together, I put in, the time, from the time I first over it. So that's just longer, drawn out process. Sponsor want to live. Homes, they want to build their new homes and live in the town. A lot of time. That's about it.
Thank you, and thank you for coming to. Any other public? Online has public comment, would you? You've got an aggressive agenda today. Let's go ahead and jump right in. One of the things that I'd like to suggest when we're looking at these ordinances through what I call the section. I want everybody to ask them, what is the goal of this ordinance? Does it affect all the housing stuff that we just talked about in a very similar manner? Other for that. How is it enforced? Have the best put it in the jumping right in. First on our list, construction time frame. 1A, we'll see that we actually already have ordinance or a code on the book that says first 6 months of the issuance of the permit construction will commence. Basically, 1 year to get it done. That's the essence. Okay. There's 3 other variations to that, so I would like whoever has some tightening that change.
Just a reminder to always make sure microphone. for 2 weeks.
Okay, Town Manager Steve, you're up. Thank you. So, building official and I had a conversation about this, and I want to look at something similar to what Gulfstream has, in that 1 year really isn't enough if you're doing it. So 1 year might be okay, it might be the time frame for a smaller home, but if you're talking about estate homes, it's not gonna be enough time for their project. We also, want to look at maybe imposing some sort of financial penalty if the project is finished with time frame established. And also, we're working on sort of tying the demolition code, building of the new structure. Meaning, yep, so if you look at the, we're gonna be looking at demolition code after this, but if you look at our proposal for demolition, have to tie some sort of building plan demolition.
It's not included in,
To be
every year, demo in.
which I think is impressive. I don't think 1 year is long. The other thing that I know that had in this, at the right amount, is I'd like to
Yeah, I agree with. Larger project. As to. Is no. According to Florida Building.
your guy, can you please?
Good afternoon, everybody. According to the Florida Building Code, it's 6 months, and it resets every time. I really don't wanna go timeline. So, I think that should be tidied up.
Okay.
So Mark, you telling me that period, does it fluctuate?
I think that is. They have to come to the department, 2008, take a look. I don't know, again, I think, I think you don't need to have a sliding scale.
Can you build a 10,000 square foot house? Yeah, you build. So 6 month permit, surrounding parking.
So for those processes, as it says in the code that we already have, and it for 6 months, and then any other extensions after the first 6 months will have to come back to the town commission. Member Hennigan.
I think there's two items. One is, we have certain conditions now that forcing them have no teeth. Concept of something like 113 Island Drive, and I hate to be pointing fingers at a particular location. I think it's symbolic of an that we have, and that is to start a demolition, have no concerns for the town for the condition of the site. Only thing the town can do is go through an extraordinarily long process of going through legal action to get you to
care of that property. And then at the same time, the person that started the demolition, it's debatable whether they ever had the intention of proceeding with construction. Whereas, did they in fact start a demolition to use it as evidence of what possibly could be done with this lot, and they're willing to leave it in this intermediate state for some God knows how long time, trying to sell it or to get their money back or whatever the condition is, but the town is left with a condition of blight that there's no way for us to restore what was normal. So I would like to see consideration given to, when we do give a demolition permit, that it is certainly tied to a, not the concept of a set of plans, but actually not, the demolition permit is not given until the building permit itself is issued. And in fact, a security bond is part of the demolition permit, that the town can go through some reasonable action of telling you that you have not performed on your building, so that the town can put the lot back into clean field condition. So whether that's a $20,000 bond for the 2-year period of the building permit or whatever, but we should not be basically held hostage for the amount of time we are here on some of the lots that I've seen in town, that the town can't restore things back to a condition where we don't have to have blight.
I think, like, back off what Neil said, are proposing that an approved building permit for construction of that demo permit. That's what we are. And I don't know about doing a construction bond. I know our previous town attorney, Brian, he's not really crazy about doing a construction bond, but he suggested doing some sort of financial penalty in the code if a project is not finished with time frame listed. You don't have to put something in there that says you're going to be fined this amount, but put something in there that states may be fined for the commission not finished.
That would have been my suggestion, that we actually buy a financial amount, whatever it is, and one of my suggestions, simply say, well, you need to pay the permit fee again, and if you go past another 6 months, then it's double the permit fee again. The permit fee that was original permit as an incentive on punishing of fine. Applying for your permit, get your permit, pay the fee, and you have 2 years or whatever time you come up with as full time to complete construction hasn't been completed, then you automatically have to amount to permit fee again, and then you have another 6 months or a year, whatever time we come up with, and then there will be another financial penalty. That will get somebody to.
My question as it relates to fines, what is the logistics of that? Because we have blighted property in town that have lots of fines on them now, but it goes, correct, that's where I'm going back to. Goes on forever, then you've got to go to a magistrate, then you have to do this, then you have to do that. And, you know, I haven't been able to get a straight answer on that particular property for a few years now. So I would go back to, I don't know anything about the ramifications of bond, but a fine, they're just not going to pay it if the intent is not to do property in town. They'll wait till it's solved at a later time. I think there needs to be more teeth in it.
And
there's several things on this list, and the whole idea was preserving the integrity of our neighborhood, so as you drive by, and or a jungle, or, you know, rodents, I would say if we are gonna look at some type of bond issue, construction site management, it covers flood mitigation, it light nuisance, I think it is, it may be outside of the layer of the, those are the type of details that I think I'd like to look up, actually zero in and back with options. As I hear the consensus is that we would like some type of like high of only one option. There's exceptions to that, 1 year is too long. But what I'd really like to do is add a little bit is add individual comments about it. That's practice. Follow up with Ronnie, but let's decide. You're sitting right in, I'm sorry, you're sitting right in front of us.
Just as a question, the security bond policy.
Right.
Or like a bail bond.
There's surety bonds, there's performance bonds. Bond may be used because their dump truck backed up and crushed our water main. There's a plethora of reasons.
So Tracy indicated Brian wasn't keen on it.
Got a new sheriff.
Yeah, Pamela, do you have any opinion on this, or do you like to think it over and come back?
Well, I will say that I've done it both ways, in different cities, and, sometimes you get pushback on the bonds, but they are the most effective, because it's something that you have in it. If you don't get the surety bond, there's a legal process that you have to go for the fine. You just fine people, without giving them the process. So, you have to make the decision what you're willing to take on yourself, because you will get some on the bond. Some cities will do a cash bond, you can do a bond, depends on how much asking. And it depends on the project. If it's a small project, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, and so what's your appetite? I don't have an either.
Thank you.
Okay, 1A, 1B, check. Move on to 1C. I think so. I think, have we given enough direction?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Again, my only comment with 1C that are going to on spill over in this area, also, particularly for damages that are not done maliciously, but accidentally, that kind of flooding that has been caused on neighbor properties. That would be my one further comment. Actually turns out that we quite an expensive code that's actually on the book.
I just had one question. Ronnie, hopefully can answer. Where it says the parking of any vehicle or equipment associated with the construction activities or construction personnel on the public right of way is prohibited. About 6 months ago, we passed that you could have parking. Right? Maybe that's something that
Yes, you can apply for 2 right-of-way permits.
Here it says you can't.
Further on it.
7-1.
My big thing was, well, no, it says, sorry to interrupt. The parking of any vehicle or equipment associated with the construction activity, construction personnel, or
It was just a limit to, if we say 2. We have a different line somewhere in that code.
a cross-check. Sure. Okay. Commissioner Hennigan.
I would just like to comment again on, the debris and construction fences. I think the bond is an appropriate vehicle again here. I know watching, Durrani's performance in my neighborhood has been like a frequent flyer on my street. The number of times he has told them where to put the fence, what the fence is supposed to look like. It's just absolutely incredible the number of times that they have come back, still haven't done it wrong. It would have been a heck of a lot simpler if all he had to do, call up the fence company and say, fence up and here's what it looks like.
So are you thinking that part of a bond could be used in?
I think again, you should have to put up a bond, much smaller amount, but sufficient that if the building official is getting kickback, pushback, whatever, that no one wants to put up the fence, no one wants to put up the bin for the trash, no one wants to put up the portable toilet, put it behind the fence, that Durrani can literally take the action of 30-day notice, and the second notice, he has the right to go order it.
So, Mr. Guy, so I understand when these conditions of a certain amount of time, what is the process?
So, our process right now that we have is pretty much one process. If someone not complying, that is to actually manage it. So usually I tend to work with the owner or contractor to actually comply. When it ends up going to magistrate is when they cut me off. So, says, what you have to do, actual sentence. But I need to point out, that, we do actually have a right-of-way bond, but we have not enforced that much. And, just based on what you said, we probably could extend that right-of-way bond to the, outside of the property. And, what, Brian had mentioned is that we have to be careful about implementing a bond because some contractors might, or saying that it's actually a restriction on them doing work. That was his to doing that. And, I just want to throw this in there too, that actually this is something we've been working on, in terms of, job site, management, holding contractors accountable. They're actually revising the process. There are some contractors that will not have to sign handbook. That's one good thing based on the list of alterations doing, just to streamline the process. And, just to add to what, Tracy has said, also when we do especially a demolition permit, tying that to making sure that it's not just a demolition, you have to restore that, either by way of a sod or by a completed permit application before you're issued that demolition. All right, and just to throw this in too, is that the seating thing is not really working. I think we should be looking at just starting.
Yeah, I was just Thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, I think we need to comment. Meeting, it only works, progress only works January, February. Always here. Yeah. Out here. Option.
And this, what do you see on irrigation?
There are other ways. Yes, doesn't work. Very hardy. Seeding is a very short-term fix.
The only thing I would say on seeding, that's a lot across my, get no irrigation, the homeowner would have to. And now it's regret.
Just saying, I'm strongly.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just saying my case is, you know.
And the.
Is there anything else that relates to? I'm gonna. Copy. There's a lot in how. Water retention. What we could do though is portable sales. Highlighted of a lot of. I guess. Sure.
Can I speak?
Yes, please.
What about a stop work order? Has that been initiated? Because I would think that, I mean, while we're dealing with the complicity of bonds, if someone is in non-compliance with the ordinances, if you stop the work order, then I think that might be one other first step before having to deal with the bonds.
Address that, Mr. Guy?
Actually, that is my favorite tool. So yes, we have been implementing that. It is something that started to really like one of the. After that, you know,
My takeaway from this, have the, a little bit more robust. Repeat. Construction workers park. Also, like staff to that.
I'm gonna follow up on what you said and ask Guy, anything along the enforcement, any tools, enforcement, right? We're all on the same page, how we want, like this enforcement are going to follow. So are there any other tools?
right. So one of the main tools that we would like to have in our fines. currently we do not have that ordinance. Only, penalty that we have is basically, writing, and, going through the magistrate process time. Don't comply within time. Then, myself, chief, basically have been, and the first step that we realize is have to do. At the same time, we're also looking at the process. They also, and there is a fine system that they have, but, right now, the appeal has to be built. Actually, secretary. So we want to change that process from to our local magistrate. Also include that building ticket, and we could also add. I wanted to add to, the construction handbook. I realize we have it here. I did make some amendments. I know we had gotten this from, neighboring municipalities. I did add something that I'd love to get some feedback back from anyone who is trying to look at it as they are and to add or subtract, because I actually really, the handbook is very good. Because most of the violations we have, the appearance side, and I have to find, some contractors that this is not normal construction. People are very prideful of the appearance of their, and just come in and be only focused on you, right? And I usually give away, the bar over here. Very excellent work when it comes to.
Mr. Guy, is there a, or contractor, subcontractor, actually?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Every contractor wants to know, actually.
Well, I look at it. And thinking, we want to avoid going. I don't want to go to magistrate, we don't want to pay. Really, fine. All right, moving on, these are all really very interwoven, property life. We're at the last committee, you out of what we said that.
So, remember we had blight, people guys pine down on Sailfish, house on Sailfish, and, Lane and Luke said there's nothing they could do about it. But I'm reading right here, this is that key, lighting influence means physical condition of property maintenance directly or indirectly cause a reduction in the value of surrounding property. So I really appreciate it, Ronnie, if you checked out Sailfish, have to go around the bend, north side, I think you'll see a blighted property that the town concluded they couldn't do anything because they didn't have a blight ordinance. They don't have a full ordinance, but yeah, it definitely decreases surrounding property value by the surrounding property value only.
I address that just really, that property typically has gravel in the front. Look at the, that is not prohibited.
But as the gentleman across the street said at the town meeting, blight is a blight influence, that's a great word, because it's detracting from the nearby property values online. now allowed to run.
That's kind of broad, and actually, I was wondering if Pam wants to look at that, and how do you property?
We want it to not be very subjective, we want it to be more one person, you know, horrible, somebody else is great, so we wanna try to have it. Fighting. Yeah, that's a decent definition, but I guess you have to have a property agreement. Whether or not the property value. That's the objective criteria. I wouldn't want.
Well, some of it will have them, but have roof tiles chipped off, you can't grass is high, have undefensible or a broken fence. So we do have some, we all agree we're enforcement, pulling things all these. May not be the gravel itself, it may be all the weeds in the gravel that they dip and.
I'm sure these neighbors would hire a.
But I would also like to, challenge our, other blight definitions, other municipalities. Again, you know, unfortunately, when it's an exception, I buy it every. Right. And one east, our landscape ordinance talks about not only landscape, but trees and how big they have to be, where they have parking of land, accessibility. It is quite an extended, which is common, which should be on all of berms, fertilizer, whatever probably for some time, probably, but these are things that are becoming more and more environmentally which is have a fertilizer or all these same thing with algae, nitrogen, north end. I'd like to think that we could get ahead of these.
That was it.
There's the dollar, but it's hard. Okay. Commissioner Herbert.
I have spoken with staff before about changing with the times, as you said, trying to be short, changing with the times, environmental. I mean, we're much more conscious of it now. We're recognizing how important it is. The utility of the town is. So therefore, I have asked that I and start looking at ways which are from the get-go with the landscape environment, now for construction, have you save trees, a lot more that can be done. So I've looked at other towns as well, and Jen said y'all might want to look at Lake Wormington, have a ordinance, their objective stated right at the top of it. Like air, noise, heat, energy conversation, and the idea of having objectives, then filling them out with how we makes a lot of sense. I have also thought about the concept of, and I know that, when the developers bring their plans to the building department, they have to bring in their landscape. I'm talking about filling this out and making it work. Also, there are concerns, which again, talks about protecting the canopy in general, which is a project. The coastal and wetlands have both sides of that going forward. And vegetation, I myself that when a project comes up, that before anybody has a chance to make a statement about vegetation on the property, sometimes already. Not quite sure if we've got something that talks about it, but if we don't, it might be considering almost a pre-planning when it come in from the get-go, before the lot is touched, taking a look at what needs. So there's, we have not a horrible. I think it's definitely, that's my basis. I won't give you all my details.
I'd like to go to Commissioner Marsh, and then alternate.
Yeah, I think we all come to the conclusion, this is okay. Yeah, because on a development. I think it just looks like it was adopted. It really needs to be fine-tuned. Shade trees, in front of a house. I think we need to dig really deep. Really kind of out there. Characters.
And I can streamlining it. Then you can put all the music. In this here.
Okay. Not even relevant.
Member Flanagan. Would you like to make?
All right. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of problems with intermittent cutoffs with audio, so I apologize that I'm late in the game. But when we look at the construction site management handbook, in the introduction, there is an addition in green, and it is grammatically incorrect. I would be happy to send corrections and not belabor that, but I think everyone would want that to be placed in a grammatically correct manner.
She typed.
Pardon? Want me to type what I think it should read?
We currently hear you. I'm going to type it and I can read it into the record and.
I'm sorry, what did you say? Hello? Hello?
Now we hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, what did you want me to do?
Go ahead and talk about the construction site management.
All right, so the green should read, to be grammatically correct, and should read, to prevent irreparable damage to our environment. This document is intended for you and your client to understand and respect the uniqueness of this location and conduct improvement in a non-volatile manner. There was an extra comma, the word locate instead of location, the U and your client's improvement in the last line were incorrect.
Mrs. Flanagan, what we'd like to do is, on smaller issues like this, or that are more housekeeping, I encourage everybody to ask directly. Anything else? Try to summarize what I heard is that this entire section, rework, simplification, with best practice, having environmental. Mr. Rishlock, Commissioner Rishlock.
One of the things that, just get an idea of where everybody else is, have request that certain environmentally more sustainable be, that's something we want to write into that, that's important, so that specific that are excluded from some of them are, I believe, in there, that we can spend on that, find locations for shade trees, requesting sizes for being planted as a landscape, all those things that environment is actually a fishery of this kind of thing. So,
As is the town.
As is the town, obviously, but sure that is.
I think we can set some baseline minimums. I'd like to have flexibility for the future, though, not to be only putting a staple in the front yard within property things, but what I'd like to maybe upside above and beyond the minimum, other quite a bit, certain LED specifications, guided permitting, different things, incentivize it in that next part, maybe with
Real quick, Chairman Marsh is talking about previous other home that was going to demolish, had a mess in the yard, but it's all gone now. Remember that, Mark? So yeah, I think.
I agree with Commissioner Colbert. For demolition happens, that's got to be tied also with. I just want to mention, we're going starting with. No.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
So because of the new height requirements for hardware, are a lot higher. So that has to be positive. In many cases, hardware and I have a question though. For sure. I believe that was coming underway with that one. That we, there are many times when I asked about this, and comes to that, then we could actually something to say, hey, this tree is the and otherwise it's debatable, and I really don't argue about what type of.
We're just starting to work on that. November is going on that. I've already heard from the restoring people. So once we get that list, you're going to make canopy lists, you're going to go and figure out which work. Little issues that I have with probably everybody else that they would like to are refurbished landscape. Send some staff or questions, everybody was there. But I will add that about the, in here it does mention native, but not always native. I have the friendly land from University of Florida and utilizing the concept of acquired native, but suggested others that aren't native but very well in the area, and they give you the same thing. So in here it does mention water landscape tied in water friendly, which is what the state uses. Unfortunately, they're legal, so they're away.
Yeah, my intent is just stuck with Ronnie saying, I think we need a method or we getting where what he has to start from the head, hurry up and present, try to embrace it. Ambient or the that's a scary thought. Some mitigating.
I'd like to ask Tracy and Guy, on Island Drive, in the last 6 months, we've had, I don't know if you call it a project or whatever, but basically from one lot to another, 6 or more fully mature sea crates were dug up, loaded on a tractor trailer truck down the street. Is that a process that requires permitting, or is that rare?
Yes, it was approved. Some guy would do everything he was.
And they did a little.
I thought that guy did a better job rather than help us. The other side of it was.
Actually, I'd like to add to Chair. Also look at incentivizing. Of your losses.
At the end of motion.
Now, to follow up on that, because those trees have been taken away, moved to another lot, probably got the nicest park now in the north end of town. Could those actually have just taken out of that lot and pulled away?
If the developer is that and what.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead and move on to right of way and right of way.
Thank you.
Either, or first I'd like staff and
one point, this
Right away? I think.
It must
Beer.
be
I don't know.
three-year feverish.
What?
yeah.
Oh, Unity Eternal, you're putting this as the right of way?
No,
Oh, okay.
that's your thing.
So we've had some problems out right away. Have a process, we have a that addresses right away. Working fine as we move forward, but what we're seeing is there weren't permits passed quickly that were, now we're running into a problem, obviously, regarding that are in the. So, that's what we need to determine is what we have on the book adequate on it. I can't. What I understand, out of the, are you needed? I'm gonna ask one person, I guess, up the sidewalk. Yeah. What we're trying to move forward is not, it's some of working with them at that. Backwards. Problem. Have the right as a town to site or for justice.
Couple of comments. I think one of the big town assets we have are right of ways. They're an extension of the streets that have opportunity for us to solve one of the biggest problems. Right of ways are drainage issues. And if we more aggressive code about requiring the whales, mitigate a great deal of on-street. Now, the current code requires a 6-inch swale. That's really very little, and over time, those tend to just disappear. They're often disappear even right after the final certificate of occupancy is issued. And if you go to other towns, I'm familiar with Jupiter, with North Palm Beach, they have swales that they use drainage system, water off the roads. All our towns along the coast here are low lying, don't have much ability to create more drainage. We can't put her into the intercoastal, but by having right of ways, and in many parts of town, they're quite wide. I know in front of my home, quite far back to where you find the fire hydrant. And people tend to think of it as their front yard, but it's really the town property. And our purpose, all public need, would be better drainage. Then some people landscaping. Although they've been there for a long time, they're on public property. They're not the property of that home. I think we've got a real opportunity. Better utilizing right of way, especially
we're talking about these, encroachments, talking about and encroachments, such as some box boulders out, along the driveway, statue.
Both, but mostly.
Would it be possible for us to simply go and identify which property we're talking about there, and this, coming from the legal side, I'm not, I think I hear your point, it's absolutely right. But from the legal side, I think, the way that we need to cover ourselves, or any, that we may have to replace it, don't have to replace it, that, if something happens, God forbid, that we are not getting dragged in. We have these indemnification, letters, I believe, that have to sign that do something right away. I think, approach everybody that have them voluntarily sign it. Hopefully get most of the signed, and after that, folks, that more we have in our pocket, better off we are just.
Before I find, I don't disagree, but I guess at some point in the session, what type of right-of-way does it sod? I don't.
I can tell you, I'm guilty of. I'm guilty not by knowing actually that I somewhat knew that I've done it, but it didn't strike me as something I've done. My neighbor has a hedge that extends all the way up onto the pavement. Front property. Should be 10 feet. And when I came down my driveway, halfway to the garage, down and then curved on to her property, I just went along the line and extended to the spot, which I should have curved 10 feet further forward. That would have been the right thing. Now, I will sign a petition letter to that without a problem. I have 2 palm trees that we planted in front of our fountain, sit the right of way. I would petition letter signed for that too. I don't ever need to get in there for anything and remove them. I should not be responsible.
I just visually, palm tree, this, like it. But again, I mean, I'm just, that's something that's allowing things right away and then permit in, and approve it. So,
Well, I'm not from a lawsuit, but where are the issues that you are having, where are the, having? Okay, well, I want to speak personally, and the same thing that Martin said, when we put our hedge in along Old Ocean, we were not aware of exactly where it was supposed to go. We, in 2009, agreed with the town that should they decide to take everyone on Old Ocean, pull it back to 10 feet, they would pull it back to 10. What we did do was pull it back and give everybody an opportunity to have a place to step off of Old Ocean should cars be coming. But when you start talking about oversimplifying, now you start getting into other issues as well, because then I personally have an issue with Old Ocean, because it's wide and 10 feet on either side of Old Ocean. Now the cars are gonna fly down there, and you've got bicycles, and you've got walkers, and you've got dogs, and you've got babies. The more open, and we had an engineer look at it, say that the more open it is, the more speed cars will gain. So at the time, town agreed with all of these other factors that come into play 1 mile street of Old Ocean, that until it was decided town-wide, well, everything on both sides, that 10, that they would leave case by case, you had to have sight lines, had to have a place to step off, you had to meet requirements.
I think if we're gonna do this project, I agree with Rick, have the drainage, then we've gotta do it properly. But almost every house has a violation for systems, and I bought the house used. Now, I didn't put edges, not 10, right? I'm on old, penny, so you're gonna have major problems, and then what does that do with the tune? If I lose some of my dunes on the other side, that's probably right away also. Right? Yeah, so my steps kinda almost come right by the street, so you'd be cutting into, make that swell. All I'm saying is I agree with Rick, we should take care of the drainage problem. Talking about a lot of money, a lot of people.
Have to be.
Yeah. And there are special instructions. All these ordinances.
Yeah, I think right, liability. Yeah, I know, but I mean, I'm saying, sure enough. That's it.
Actually, that's, regardless of whether the house is under construction or not, it's house planted in that safe site triangle high. We have some spots, regardless of whether the project.
And I think everybody's approaching it right away with it, wondering what liability. Right away. Liability.
Our case is great about coming by periodically by Lynn, doesn't get to it quite quick. Over the stop sign, stop by and his son was okay.
Same one side triangle. How big?
It's big.
Okay, you take 30 feet one way, 30 feet another way, and you create a triangle. That's a pretty big area. Those folks that are at the intersection on the corner, they know. For the most part, we have contacted them, and like Penny knows, for all the years she's on the corner, we notify her, and she immediately gets her landscaper in there and cuts it down low enough so there's no. So, do the best we can as we drive around, look at those things. That comes first and foremost.
Follow up with Lee. Steve, the get to these sections, the hedges are suddenly close, they struck their home.
We do not have true site triangle ordinance, but it's a wonderful time to bring that up because we're talking about shortcomings of the encroachment address. That's truly something to talk about that I think is probably true safety issue. Having a site triangle that we talk about because it's very well defined. Right away encroachment. That difficulty and that is having a I'm under the authority. Wonderful. Agreements not follow that ordinance. Makes it difficult for us to know what is and is not permitted. Our manager spoke to the old permits that were issued as that's part of the bill. Not even absolutely forward with purchasing. Try and drive by. River every order to be able to ensure compliance, has to have a
No, I'm sorry, it would help if we had, would help if we.
Common sense or is it?
So what I'd like,
Liability. Something like help with something.
So I would like to suggest that we learn from this, that if section, like, some type of, on, also, I'd like the idea, Terry brought up in, is long enough to section afterwards. A little bit more. So, we can. Some point you can. Oh, I'm not. I'm absolutely not. And I think that's where we ended up with Commissioner Bessler. He's like, oh, that'll be fun. Yeah, you can do it, not me. But I mean, we're gonna create harmless and permanent of the value of outside of the. Moving real quickly because 5-minute break. Light news that I definitely upload as regular lighting, construction lighting, there, but the spotlights up on corners make tools don't get stolen or their tiles don't get stolen. Around it are so looking at on our books is outdoor lighting. Our property that doesn't happen. It's one of those new often does and
Osprey Drive, a doctor. Remember that whole neighborhood? And those were,
Former pilot.
No
offense. Easy. Yes, I do.
I think.
Mark, I can't hear you.
Sorry. The ordinance is clearly defined for discourages tennis court. Turned down. That's my.
And
I'm a fighter.
mining.
That's correct.
Don't need to leave, don't leave from that. Yes.
tennis court. On to.
Water.
Getting it here.
Yes, I have some.
If this is-
Because I was gonna go to my car, and then I was gonna go to my car. I was just gonna go to my car.
They have a center and. Down. That. Yeah, there's. See all the. It's like a caterpillar.
Fewer days, because the time can be there. We got one neighbor's drainage, another neighbor's yard.
Maybe need water.
And swales can really be a good way to use it on your stuff, you know. So I'll have to walk it. Don't have many pools in down. We don't have the ability to discharge more into the intercoastal. You just pump it into the intercoastal, and that'd be fine.
What do you think about your wife will be happy?
And I don't do that.
No, you gotta get a point of reference.
They went, it's over two times. First, we had a trainer, start the work, trying to get a grant, they went halfway.
So it's excellent reading. I mean, they've given right down to the parcel, pump, length.
Oh, yeah?
Stock number. Oh, yeah. And, it's pretty interesting, and they use airbag. Exactly, but what's interesting is how it validated. They validated
cost
But that's all-
about the same?
Well, they chose low pressure because a third of their town already has it.
Okay.
Okay?
That's a big difference.
And, well,
So they are all okay with having a grinder station?
well, and then for all the new grinder stations and all the maintenance and upkeep of the grinder stations is on the owner.
So in the north county,
I never got one of those. So when I got the trash number and back in all the Costco grinders, don't even put a dollar in for.
Really wasn't trying to go out the door. All right. Thank you, everybody. We only have an hour left, so, we would like to make probably the visual point. So let's go ahead. We were talking about maintaining structure that's found while we're personal property. Put wax on. But one of the things that has been brought to our attention, I know for mining, permanent structure on old. Commissioner Vessler, I know.
Sure. Basically, set the ordinance, you have to have unit of title now with the property, you have to have a house connected to a property. A lot of it have a structure on deck, but don't house it. And you now have that ordinance. Problem is, there's 3 properties in Ocean Ridge that do not have unit title now, and because of the way we set the ordinance, it's kind of grandfathered in. But I think we're either gonna have to take care of this problem now, we're gonna have the problem. Issues are, there's no bathroom facilities, so they could have the parties on the decks and all, and then what's gonna happen? And then the second issue, where do they park? They don't have a house anywhere nearby, there's no parking. Now, I have a house on the location, so I have parking, so I'll call Al Hutchinson when I have a party. I'll say I can get 8 cars on my property, but I'm gonna have to have 3 parked. Well, if they have a party with 11, I would, but like 11 cars, they're gonna be allowed to park on the street. There's no way to stop them because I don't have more rights than them. So all these cars loaded up on where they have a party, and then of course, you know, where do they put their garbage? And I've never seen that problem where garbage has been around, but eventually. And then the third issue is, what if a hotel chain buys that property off that individual owner? How are you gonna stop them from using it? You can say, well, we have a commercial property ordinance, but is that really a commercial property just because they have a deck and they let people go to the deck? So I just think we're either gonna have to solve the problem now, or we're gonna solve it in the future, and I think it's only gonna get worse because the more you allow it, the harder it is.
Yes, so here's the ordinance that we just did, of some of that issue. How would that sort of thing, or that we're still concerned about selling ones that are grandfathered in, worried about them selling their portion.
Correct. Right, they could sell it, but they could then sell it as a standalone. They don't have to connect it.
Right.
So one of my suggestions was, why don't we just ask the people, connect it to wherever you live? I know we have a distance, but in this case, you know, it'd be hard to, you know, have them buy another house. So we just say that we ignore that if you hook it to your house. So it always has to stay to wherever they live.
You're talking about, like in revocable title, for instance. Marshall had a property under, sold her property for residents, but she. So you're saying, for her residents, or then, ahead, that would structure could never then.
Correct, and then when she goes and sells her place, all together with the dune, so that new owner would get it, because there's no way to avoid that, or she could sell to somebody that's close to that dune, they want to buy it. Because there's some houses, took it away from some houses that are close enough to that dune.
problem require that.
So the one thing I would like to look into, if the, look into this is, how did it ever happen? How were you ever able to put these two? Because I've owned a couple places in Palm Beach County, cannot have a structure unless you have a house. I had a house in the county pocket, and I had to knock it down because, I really just bought for the land, but I had a nice garage. So I went for my demolition permit, and said, I'm knocking the house down, but I drew the picture of my garage there, and they said, well, what are you doing with this? And I said, well, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm gonna keep it for a while. And they said, well, when you building your house? And I said, well, I haven't even thought about it yet. I really just bought it for the land, but I don't wanna knock the garage down. And they said, you're knocking it down. And I ended up selling the land, and the lady who bought it from me knocked the garage down. So you're forced to do that. So how did they split the title with a structure on it and not have to be able to knock the structure down?
Because it wasn't titled together to separate parcels.
Well, I don't think that's the case, because I think that was hooked to two houses. And when she bought she had owned two houses on Wood Ocean. She rented one, and that's where the dune was hooked to, and then she sold it, she transferred it to her other house that was behind me. So she did that kind of stuff, so she was able to do it. I just don't know how you.
There's a difference between deeded, like Trish said, I don't want to.
Ordinance that we just.
Title and so Pamela can actually find out the answer to the question, how this is. Two.
I would like to know.
Second step, when the town does a unity title, town does a unity title, so now it's done. Well, that's not reflected in property. So I don't know if it's 4 to 6 months later, it has to be registered as property. Yeah.
A lot. I don't wanna, I won't pretend that I was grasp all of it.
Yeah, sure.
That was going to be my question, was that how did it happen? I actually wanted to ask if you had closed that loophole. From what I read back, it was a stroke of a pen by the town manager. Administrative, decision that Jamie was able to at that time.
As far as I know, we don't have any documents.
Separate that off, or look at the ordinance, I believe that was what all this was. So if we didn't, you're saying because it was separate, able to one deed sell the other deed. Because my property is, it's one tax bill. It may be two legal descriptions. Actually, no, it's one legal description, but it's one tax bill.
Yeah, but I'm two parcels. I only have tax bill.
True, I have two parcels, parcel A and B, but it's one tax bill.
Took it from the smaller house. That's what that house primary. But
So we have to close that loophole.
Well, I think we closed that loophole, except we're left with.
Close this, you want to have structure. Ever want to have structure?
I just have a quick comment, because I know I was talking to Brian regarding this, one of the last conversations I was having. Regarding, there is a property that has it on the deed, and
one of their questions was like, well, since we have it on the deed, then we wouldn't need the unity of title. And Brian made it very clear that yes, you do, because with the deed, just having it on the deed, they can still split that property. And with the unity of title, they cannot, unless it's released to the town commission. So if administrative approves the title, the town commission approves the title, they cannot separate that and then release by the town commission.
I want to make sure it's a level, that is, you don't know if that's what really happened, but we want to make sure it doesn't. No, I'm not taken at all. Vice Mayor Costello.
Somebody to, kind of run this.
Yeah, sure, right there. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Okay, let's get into the, I would like to ask everybody, straighten your spine and up. Talking about the proposed elevate where find everybody on so from finished so best way to this happy your more
We're gonna write. So, at various intervals, but you scientific studies and studies data and determining what's called one person. One year, 1 in 100, that's established as a last review that is, has determined that most actually have to be approximate. Orange base load that have a 7 business. 6, 7, 9, and the houses. I'm sorry that we have why we look and slide is already that look at the houses, how and house. But we I want to actually like the root that is that we have to make. Actually have to have a root. About it and it's true. Some of it is inevitable. Like what needs to happen, probably Marsh has one that color and line. Brick on the lower level of the home. And actually, I leave most of that to margin. Have to get reasonable.
Yeah, I think the concern in coming in front of our commission, application, I think back to the character of the town and the scale of it. I think what our current ordinance allows, overall height is measured from the ground floor. As I said, it's pretty significant. What it's doing is creating this artificial vertical height scale at going to become more evident development. No fault of development. The fact that we have approximately, there you go, 36. So even getting air impact vertical height on the side of an E and outside area we're going to get 6 rooms for normal vertical height on the panel. So I think it's something we need to really focus on and discuss where it's done and packaging number of pumps that you come up with. But my concern, and this is, I deal with it daily, I think having the finished floor as your point of reference, establishing overall height, is going to create exactly what we here, and it transforms down quite severely in scale and mass. I did share with Ronnie what they do on Beach, what they do is a zero datum by what you measure that are looking at. Well, let's try and simplify. In the old days, those who were around, point of measurement for finished floor level, consistently 18 inches above crown of road, the height of crown of road in front of the residence. That was the historical reference of everything, till FEMA came into something more and more every year, and this is with good reason. But what it does, use just a, and some of you have been, we had one applicant that 5 months ago came in, floor level was 7.5 feet, and he came back to us last month and raised it 9 feet, or 10 feet. Yes, it's 10 feet. So, significant height differential requested. That particular lot, somewhat forgiving, because very deep, narrow lots of ample guys that false or artificial for elevation relative to basin property. I think don't start creating some guidelines by which zero datum point of measurement, little artificials that shown using two methods that town of Palm Beach uses. First is going 18 inches above the highest crown. That establishes your datum and so it does penalize the owner because it does tend to mass or scale in terms of floor height and max height of interior spaces. Other way to look at it is take as referenced here, but still use the datum 18 inches. Allow they have to build their lowest level to 10 foot or 9 foot height, but allow them to fill or backfill guys again that artificial height. No good formula right now. I think it's we'll see built elements down ready to exhibit this really high characteristic vertical height of finished floor and on the side of it. So I think no one formula works currently. I think we really think about massing of buildings, not only just relative to one story, what's going to physical appearance of the town. So with that, I think Corey, a number of scales. I think Cuesta has somewhat of a hybrid calculation that they use. But I think what this is all about is just putting here that buildings are going to veranda, scale is going to get higher. So that in a lot of cases, scale and character of the town potentially creating really all empowering structures. An example is provided on Harbor by South. House is built forms for the brick house below it. Those people thought that every private or sense of privacy, as I call it, because it's just towering over. So I think this is really a wake-up call, and as the mayor said, it's going to be a major issue. Besides to it, Mr. Vargas still here, and he wants to build houses that maximize their interior height. And but I think we've got to come up with a formula that addresses both, private development, as practice. So there's no one. I don't think anybody can recommend one formula right here unless we can. That's something. But I think it's something we've got to look at how monitor like the word mandate, how structures affecting the contemporary lifestyle, facing this neighborhood.
Chair Marcia. So there's really two overarching
and foremost, one of them is the character in town and rate reduction. Size, materials, rules, setbacks, structure. Second one is for all neighbors, are our codes, are our ordinance affecting now, like, there is, simple thing is, property line or does it go? There's a lot of different, very different business for everybody. We're gonna get.
I would like to add that, there are communities that have, character as large statement as to their architecture. One of them would be New Orleans. And New Orleans has dealt this with historic buildings and with new construction. And they have an extensive program of looking at both style of construction, placement of buildings on the lots, impacts on the neighbors. I took a lot of the essence of their program, put it on for you, and tried to look at the areas where it impacts our town code, where it impacts our neighborhood feel. And we do have areas where we have tools in our toolbox that are more than just putting horizontal lines, airways. You have things like our second floor restrictions, 75% of the first floor. You can do things like, should we consider that section on the second floor has to be in front of the building, so that when you look at it, visually going to rack the building back where you get to that enormous massing. You have different lot sizes. You have a basic 10,000 foot lot. That's going to be very restrictive. But we have probably, I think it's almost 25% of our lots that are in the 12,000 and up size. We do things there where we say, we're going to go vertical on that lot, you have to have bigger setbacks, other than our simple setback of, and mitigate that massing that next house. So I would like us to have an opportunity at P&Z to sort of, what would be the word, workshop this and be able to look at within our code what mitigation things we have and come up with other types of things that we could do and not be, what's the word, not be overly demanding on the builder or the style of the house, but trying to come up with a comprehensive way where we can both work together. Makes a difference on the house whether we look again at kitchen roofs. We sort of had a reluctance against the flat roof house. But the flat roof house, if it's done the right way, perhaps doesn't end up being as high. So I think we have to get our toolbox out and look at more options.
I don't know who. Well, I was going to have a little more conversation on our number 2, which was maintaining character of town while protecting private property rights. So bring the microphone. Seems to be into that anyway. I was going to say, can you give me 10 minutes and end discussion back to and talk about protecting our character of our neighborhood? But it's actually looking like falling into what Neil just. So I was going to bring up being proactive on the possible changes, not just with FEMA, but that's a big start there. Approach. Idea our town changing with development. Instead of it kind of proactive overdevelopment, ruining the town. I'm going to suggest us and our maybe or with staff start discussing a possible guideline. Just guidelines and not overly onerous, but I think this is time for us to start looking at ways that affect not just the homeowner, but the neighbor. So many other towns have them. High and low on them. Start with that before our town is working right into that possibility. Talking bigger and more mass. Marge brought up the idea there's tricks play with the eye to make it look less ours than it is. I think it's a bigger discussion. I would like to bring up talking about design guidelines.
Listening, again, I like what he's saying, workshop on concept that he said, but let's face it, I don't think there's anybody on people homes for living. Chairman designs them well, I think, but we're gonna fight it not be a good idea. Wrong with it. How home builders might deal with friction, how they might deal with it. Learn from builders, I think, maybe make some everyone.
I think why we have public, everybody is represented.
Yeah, but I'm suggesting that they can make a presentation, not necessarily time limit. How they would.
I think, no, we encourage much input in. As I said, basically, warning sign that we're going to be dealing with stuff and get ready for it. We don't want to discourage our development, but at every angle available to guidelines. Mentioned. I think we need a full menu of guidelines, yes. This is the biggest thing. And you know, we're compounded by the fact that streets I live on and that are really low. The answer is to elevate the street out of this way. It's way ahead and they're protecting you. Or you know, have a road that's 3.5 feet. Or 10 feet, that's important. It's gonna be major. I can't understand. All the towns are playing with this and on the wagon as well. I said, one of the things that I mentioned for datum, find out what a verbatim is. and up to 1.5. 18 on the Hudson, coconut, 5 feet. Son of, your head there, you need help here, you.
Comment from,
That's the,
came before you in 2017, 2018, with some changes from FEMA. They were mostly with respect to those properties along the ocean. Because
the actual
analysis was more focused on storm surge, how that relates to on the coast.
So when did it?
So some areas were raised, actually some areas lowered. Next go round. It came back in more modeling and more analysis and analyzed the fact of level rise as after the surge. Was there anything? Yes. There are some areas in town that were lowered, not dramatically, but along the coast, as analysis now is more focused towards those folks on the intercoastal side and the mainland, respect to water level rise in the intercoastal waterway and how that impacts after certain types of storm events. So,
That's you're concentrating on the ocean. I think the answer. And my second question, Neil touched on, said no flat roofs, so kind of a, like a flat roof. Neil's suggestion is good with it.
I think that,
but I mean, they look the same to me.
certainly, carpet roof,
I'm just saying you have to include everything.
Yeah. Thinking
Solving
of everything
this
with
problem.
third rail. Everyone's up with it. But on the volume of. Builder has a choice of going and let's say 36 and 70. Or right now we have to be.
Historically, Steve, the data that I've calculated of all the different size houses in town are never put.
Right, but a builder is gonna push it. That's the point. So the builder's gonna wanna capture
I'm just
height,
saying
but if
that-
you can
I'm just
capture
saying
far,
that-
that might be more valuable to him.
I'm not disagreeing with you,
Well,
I'm
he's
not
agreeing
saying
with
that
you.
you shouldn't be
Yeah,
changed,
he's
I'm just
building.
saying that there's still room in what we have, because it hasn't been all used.
at first, Commissioner Lex?
What we're doing right now is we're going to the highest, actually not optional, in our code. Have a certain percentage of that roof. What is for, once you have six-stack home, six-stack roof, you have to get that elevation that we have on the roof. My suggestion would actually find a point from Mark's line, wherever we set that zero. Right approach. Have a zero line, don't go to the top of the roof, actually go to where the roof high beam, go from the high beam on, and that will then give incentive. That would change.
ordinance from allowing the flat roof. Certain requirements as far as to how they use, what pitch, whatever we need, make sure that these are, put in structural sound, but not eliminate, not disallow them, because it will actually down the height, and it's down the height by 3, and it's highly builder, and honestly, whatever we're looking at these days that comes through the building department and construction, some sort of form, temporary or close to contemporary structure. While we have builders like Mr. Vargas who lives in this town, who cares about this town, and builds accordingly respect to this town, there will be other builders that will. So our mission, find a way how to put zoning in place that protects the town height and structure. The only way to accomplish that is by going.
I think we're maybe flat roof. These are all things looked at. They all do. Don't want to get too far off the track with bigger picture. It was brought forward for introduction.
I just had one question. These, all the homes now, the lower floor is always parking at the garages. Living area, that is getting get any benefit by allowing garage lower. House would.
Yeah, I heard you. Bedroom. That's ineffective.
Under
That is uninhabited. But they artificial. First. I'd like to go back to that point of reference height, vertical. I said earlier, that vertical I was going to suggest that Wall Street actually go to Jesus Ivy, and the roof is finishing. I'm going to have so there are various ways we try to. I think what we have now is a real problem. Really, what I wanted to. I think the solution is still unknown at this. Have to look for that. Still said, Wall Street, Canada. Wall Street. They have what I call the wedding cake. And then you put in 5% extra of 5 setback. Again, the scale mass is somewhat mitigated by the stepping in. I'm not sure that's the greatest solution. Those are things we need to look at. After some of these. The only cry here is we're going to get on the sea. And, FEMA's doing what they meant to do. Can't change Wall Street. You gotta come up with some method of fear advising south of, same time conserving vertical.
Obviously, if there's more questions or answers. We're gonna have to put this as sort of a marsh as architect, like developer at your ask. But we appreciate it. Okay, let's go ahead and very quick.
This ship's already sailed. Already had one property come in. We've already heard Mr. Vargas got a house having to be now. How this building department, next house to come.
There is no answer now. Onward.
How do we solve our problem and his problem? Is this,
Don't write.
is this a moratorium item, or is this a iterative process item, or?
I would not like.
I don't like the concept either. I also don't like to sit there on being first person and have to 36-foot high house on 9-foot lot. That's what.
It is an
I don't
iterative
wanna be that
process right
person.
now, and I'm gonna stop the discussion.
I'm just saying, moratorium scares everyone.
Right. The zoning in progress is.
So what I would like to discuss is.
Brian, I'm sorry, I couldn't.
I apologize. I said we can, zoning in progress. That, everyone I noticed, they're changing regulations. By our, well, they can't do anything under. And,
Let's slip under the gate.
Can we bring that forward, as soon as November?
Ambitious,
Accept
but.
it.
That's 1 week. Oh, then we have to have.
No.
Okay, we are now down to 6 minutes. All right. All right, district regulations. I don't know who brought this forward and what was. Member Henning.
Which one?
District regulations, code section 54-1.
-1.
It's, 3B.
Oh, we're talking about RMM properties and RFC properties. I believe right now we have, for areas that are zoned RMM, people have have the ability on multifamily, low density properties, to build single family homes. And believe the code now says that if they elect to do that, that they just have to comply with the ordinances that cover RSE properties. Correct? And, obviously changes, FARs and on the size of the RMM lot, which is 10,500. My concern is, once that has been done, now have what was built as a family house on RMM property, what happens if that property is turned over at a later date? That person says, I want to put this property back as a multifamily, and it never complies, that has been any community owned in this. So this I got alerted to this Wayne when Wayne was ties into the same sort of thing as this community of title sort of you changing the game, and later on you want to go back and use other rules. So
I would like
I know it exists. It exists. Big houses.
Okay. That was, Mark.
Yeah, I think, there are cases, are developing and meet current. I would like to get special areas. Definition. I think important is to sign in on the structure. Not deny them right to housing. That's what folks trying to interpret. I've always said that I use daily. Codes for South Florida are made up by 100. That is a side of the pancake. You know, the reality is not every lot. Special exception requirement that applicants come and present it. Like, in addition,
Get out of the process.
have to prove a hardship. Not exist. Times are where we have a clause in administrative variance. Or midnight, that case.
Every, or what? Bill to actually.
Non-conforming, minor non-conforming.
Exactly. Come in front of the town and ask. So I thought this was.
Oh, yeah, that's all commercial. Keep that going. Yeah, sorry, I'm just dealing with.
I think what I'd like to,
Most towns have them. Definition of minor area.
I think I know what you.
Variance, but it, sure, Mr. Vargas, is very, 22 years of doing that, yet, hardship. Yeah, I just use, because other towns use, especially.
because we do have a lot of water, right away. Okay, well, we are 5 minutes over, would it be, right. Our review process, all thought out, and it's always true. The homeowner builder is a very different process. On house, really, kind of the new guy in town, a lot of developers. Having said that, you I what our what idea potential idea. And they did in the memo, I think the process kind of sort of looks like what it's currently by staff. We would just all the documents. Also, you have the checklist, we review it, make sure that everything on the checklist is there. After we complete that review, head up to staff, which is zoning, the town engineer, and as well as the review. Depending on, they have about a week to review, and depending on their review, they either issue comments or they give us an approval with conditions. If the project has comments, is the comments given to contractor or the applicant, and project is called and they address the comments. And the process starts all over again once they come with new plans or drawings. The two suggestions that I gave at the bottom are suggestions that either staff has or applicant has given us. One of the suggestions is to not have drainage plans part of
the process. And that will reduce the cost for the applicant, the town, and as well as cut down time reviewing process. Another suggestion was to reduce the notice guidelines. Right now, I have to mail out 20 days prior to, we can reduce that date and give it a little bit more time for an item to get on the agenda. Only issue with that is if we have a seasonal resident that is living out of state, sometimes it does take time for them to receive their mail. So only considering that rule.
You know, because not the email or not allowed, but
Well, this is what it is. Which one is their official email? We don't have, per se, an official email to that person, and sometimes our email is spam, and how do you send?
and from 5 years. Stated that amount of hired back and started earlier, hours maybe not to us. I'll wait. Time,
I think streamlining the process. So we're seeing a lot of packages very deep. In some cases, their final document project. Developer, owner, marked upon very final set of documents. And Margaret said, mentioned, Townsend has a ARCOM. And that's kind of what we have here. And I prefer that we get a, what I term a design development, accurate, fixing scale, not necessarily telling us how course lab is for the appearance. Colors, rendering, site plan criteria, clearly, creating setbacks and comments. Vice Chair here, drainage. Don't need a full set of construction documents. That's something that's done because we're trying to find things that may not comply with a document, 20 pages of information, unfair, and that will streamline the process. Something that's not good, already committed to all your construction documents, and that's where the issues come up. I understand, like you're in, right? Have price, or documents, architecture, lighting, colors, character, something like that. That's for any of the other things here too. And get sets of documents right above what yeah, I mean, it's just, we're concerned about according to the criteria, pipeline, which the setting, again,
waiting for the chair to recognize.
Yeah, please, I'm sorry.
I agree fully. You made the statement that I wanted to make. We're getting way more information than, I don't even think, that we need drainage. Because, we rely on staff. If it's a code review, when staff's gonna do a review, we don't need to do staff's job, and we don't need the same level of staff needs. It can be more collaborative with the builder if we get it earlier. They're not going to be locked in on the plan. If we make a suggestion, it doesn't cost them thousands of dollars. Alter the plans to conform with our suggestion. So I think we could have a much more process that could allow the plans to get for us, give a builder an assurance that he's got a plan that they can move forward to, and the thousands of dollars that they invest in the plans are going to be spent on something.
I really like what you, our street, look at this, are all reasons why we go down a project. Many of those items are effective. Tighten it up and avoid any subjectivity. So the time is broadly acceptable. Applicant, I learned that my taste might be conflicting homeowner as a fine house.
I definitely like streamlining a smaller package. There's some I don't have on there. But I wouldn't for plans for bedroom. I'm not big for the having those packages checklist. Just let us know what you guys want to away from this that you guys definitely don't want to see more, and that way, cut down on. Okay.
I don't think it's that we don't want to see.
Aesthetic is always the part of
The idea is not just to take it out of the package, but or P&Z, but to actually not require the applicant to have the requirement for the bring it.
Correct, they would,
Right.
Every town. Limiting it, money, that's your editor's suggestion.
Exactly. It's much more preliminary stage, kind of, cargo out about.
Perfect.
I wanted to have bigger windows, the engineer has to do it. Mayor, the building clerk would like to. I just want to say, we have an ordinance that has a guide form, and our ordinance checklist not match. Or, because in past meetings, I would like to checklist for.
I could say, might want to checklist.
Yeah.
Very basic, works very well.
Okay. I asked. Marsh, work with Guy. Any further comments? Mr. Hutchins, Mr. Flaga. All right.
Richard Half-Mast now.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming this evening. This is an iterative process. This is not the only one that we will ever have. I think we covered a lot of ground tonight. I want to thank staff for pulling together all the inordinate amount of information. Everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Meeting now adjourned at 8:47. Do I need a motion for it?